What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything you need to know about on a daily basis, including money, investing, the stock market, what's going on here in the United States and Washington, D.C., and the fourth stimulus package and stimulus check updates. We cover it all here on our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure to click the subscribe button down below. Right now, it's completely free to do so. And remember that new videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The first city in Ukraine has now fallen to the Russians. That's right, we're going to talk about the details of that. And you will not believe what the price of oil is doing and the price of gas. Yeah, it's literally unbelievable. We got a lot to talk about here, so let's jump right in. Yeah, the first Ukrainian city falls to Russian troops. It wasn't heavily defended, but it is a pretty large city. Here's the details. Russia took control of the first city in Ukraine on Wednesday, yesterday, a week after the invasion began. Kherson is now under Russian control as the city was surrounded earlier in the day, a senior Ukrainian official says, and the New York Times reported. The mayor of the city of 300,000 people confirmed in an interview that the city was surrounded and the Ukraine army was not in the area. So there was relatively few defenders there. The mayor says, quote, "I made no promises to them. I have nothing to promise. I am only interested in normal life of our city. I just asked them not to shoot people. We don't have the Ukrainian armed forces in the city, only civilians and people who want to live here." The mayor told the Times that 300 civilians and defense troops may have been killed during the takeover, though. So I guess Russia considers this a victory that they captured a undefended city. Hey, whatever small victories they need to claim. Here's a statement from the White House.
Russian strikes are hitting schools, hospitals, residential buildings. They're destroying critical infrastructure, which provides millions of people across Ukraine with drinking water, gas to keep them from freezing to death, and electricity. Civilian buses, cars, even ambulances have been shelled. Russia is doing this every day across Ukraine. We must send a resolute and unified message that President Putin should unconditionally stop this unprovoked attack, as the Secretary General and the High Commissioner have done, and immediately withdraw Russian forces from Ukraine. We must condemn, firmly and unequivocally, Russia's attempt to topple a democratically elected government and its gross human rights abuses and violations of international humanitarian law.
Also, Russia has a 40-mile convoy of tanks and supplies and troops and everything going into the city of Kyiv, which has been stalled and a little bit resisted.
Yes, sir. So on the convoy, what I would tell you is we still assess that that convoy, but more broadly speaking, the northern push by the Russians down towards the south, towards Kyiv, remains stalled. They haven't, from our best estimates, have not made any appreciable progress, geographically speaking, in the last 24 to 36 hours. Again, nothing very significant. It is difficult for us to know with great specificity all that is going into this stall, if you will. But in general, we believe that there's a couple of reasons for that. One, we believe the Russians are deliberately actually regrouping themselves and reassessing the progress that they have not made and how to make up the lost time. Two, we do believe that they have experienced logistics and sustainment challenges that we don't believe they have fully anticipated. And three, they are getting resistance from the Ukrainians. We have some indications, nothing that we can 100% independently verify, but we have some indications that the Ukrainians have in fact tried to slow down that convoy. And we have no reason to doubt those reports, but again, we can't speak to it in great specificity. In the south, the Russian forces appear to be experiencing in general, less resistance than they are up in the north. That said, the town of Kherson, which we knew they were moving on out of Crimea towards the northwest, that is, in our estimation, at least from what we can see, still a very contested fight. I know the Russians have claimed that they've got the town of Kherson. We're not in a position to call it either way. It appears to us that the Ukrainians are certainly fighting over that town. Coming out of Crimea to the northeast, we knew that they were advancing on Mariupol, a major population center in the south. We believe that advance is ongoing. That we don't believe that they are in the city center, and we do have every indication that Mariupol will be defended. So they are sort of branching out. If you look at Crimea and go north, they're branching out to both the northeast and the northwest. But they are beginning now, our assessment is, as they get closer to these two population centers down in the south, we believe they're facing more resistance.
Also, the U.S. and the world, especially the EU, European countries, remember the U.S. Imports about 8% of oil from Russia, but this fluctuates a little bit, but these are average numbers, okay? About 8% of our oil comes in, we buy it from Russia. But Russia is the world's second largest producer of oil. We, the United States, are actually the first largest producer of oil, the United States. But we export about 38% of our oil, okay? But remember, this is not really Biden's choice or Trump's choice. This has been going on for a while. Not just, Biden didn't just decide this as soon as he came into office. Nothing's been changed there. And Trump didn't really decide this. A lot of this has to do with the oil companies as well. Chevron, BP, Exxon, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, about 38% of our oil is actually sold. Okay. But there's a growing call right now in the U.S. from the people and in Europe to stop buying Russian oil. This would actually be the #1 sanction that you could do to Russia. By and large, cutting them out of SWIFT was what they call the nuclear sanction. It's actually one of the largest sanctions you could do. But probably the absolute #1 be-all, end-all of sanctions, short of physically going to war, which some would consider World War III with Russia, physically going to war, short of going to war with them, the next step short of that would be cutting the world off from buying their oil. But this is a double-edged sword here, because if the U.S. doesn't buy their oil, our prices on gas are going to go up. Question is, would you be willing to pay $1 more per gallon? And I'm just throwing a number out there because I don't know what it's going to be. Most people don't know what it's going to be. Let's just say 8 to 10% of our oil comes from Russia. If we didn't buy that anymore, what would the price of gas go up to? It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Now, we could make some changes here. We could buy oil from other places. We could export less oil and just keep it here at home. We could make changes. But it's safe to say, gas is rising here by the day just on the conflict, just on the scare of what's going on in Russia. We haven't even announced that we're not going to buy their oil. Imagine if we announced that we weren't going to buy their oil, what would happen with the price of oil? But there's a growing call from the American people and the European people to not buy Russian oil anymore. This would cripple their economy. But Americans and Europeans, if we didn't buy their oil anymore, would all have to pay more for oil and gas. And then that would thereby mean that we'd be paying more for everything else, because the price of everything else would go up, at least short term. Because remember, everything has to be shipped by truck. Groceries, things on the shelves, even if it's made here in the U.S., still has to be shipped from the U.S. factory to the grocery store, to the Walmart, to the CVS. Here's what the price of oil just did. Check this out.
Mr. President, are you considering banning Russian oil imports?
Nothing is off the table. Nothing off the table. President Biden keeping open the option of sanctioning Russian oil exports, even as the cost continues to climb. Oil prices have jumped to their highest level since 2011, topping over $113 a barrel. So what does that do? It impacts the price of gas. And who better to talk about that than our Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg. Secretary Buttigieg, I want to thank you for staying up late with us because we've got a lot to cover. And you know we're going to start with gas prices. Already an issue. Any person in this country with a car is talking about it, complaining about it. And the thing is, prices are only going to go up. What tangible things can this administration do to address it now?
Yeah, we're seeing this pain at the pump. As you know, gas prices are based on oil prices. Oil prices go up when there's volatility and uncertainty in the world. Obviously, there's a lot of that right now, especially with the consequences of Russia's attack on Ukraine. There are options available to the president, and he's been exercising those options. For example, not just alone, by the way, but with several other countries, putting together a strategic release of petroleum from reserves in order to help stabilize that oil market. Now, the truth is, I think a lot of folks sometimes overstate the influence that any one politician can have on gas prices, that even an official in a leadership role like the President of the United States can have. And yet the president has asked for, sought, and exercised options that are making a difference. I think you're going to continue to see a range of options. And at the same time, I want to zoom out a little bit here because there was a very powerful message from the president last night about what we can do to ease the costs that Americans are feeling across the board. No matter what's happening with the ups and downs of gas prices in this moment or in any moment, we know that we can save American families thousands of dollars a year with very specific actions that are absolutely under the control of policymakers in Washington. Lowering the cost of insulin, lowering the cost of prescription drugs, lowering the cost of housing, the cost of childcare, on and on, with very specific proposals that the president has put before Congress. And if they send them to the president, he'll sign them right away. Costs will go down for American families across the board.
I hear you, sir, but those are long-term solutions for bigger issues. And you know we live in a short-term world, so I just want to stay on gas for another moment. And you're absolutely right. The president doesn't set the price of gas, but he can influence it. And while releasing some strategic reserves matters, given how much has been released, it's really just a drop in the bucket. Are there things like, and I realize it is controversial, it has huge environmental impacts, could the president possibly consider authorizing the Keystone Pipeline, working something out with Iran?
I mean, look, the president has said that all options are on the table, but we also need to make sure that we're not galloping after permanent solutions to immediate short-term problems where more strategic and tactical actions in the short term can make a difference, like what you have with the strategic reserve, which exists partly in order to respond to situations like this. And, of course, the president's laid out policies that are going to help cushion the impacts of any volatility in energy markets for the future by building up more of a diversified and homegrown energy base for this country. Look, we don't know what the next curveball is going to be affecting oil prices, affecting the global energy markets, from a pandemic to a war. Anything can happen any given day. And the president's been working to make sure that Americans, to the extent possible, are protected from those effects.
The next curveball could be a cyber attack. You dealt with the Colonial Pipeline hack last year. What are you doing right now to protect our transportation infrastructure?
Well, one of the biggest lessons of the Colonial Pipeline hack was it was a reminder of how a great deal of the critical infrastructure in this country is actually in private or non-federal hands. And so our focus really has been working with those who do control or own or operate so much critical infrastructure, whether we're talking about pipelines, whether we're talking about water and wastewater utilities, transportation assets, to make sure that they understand their responsibilities to communicate with each other, other about best practices and to communicate with the U.S. government when they come under attack so that there can be a response. Of course, we work to make sure that anything that is federally owned and operated is secure, but this is something that in many ways is in its infancy. As we look across the 2020s, 30s, 40s, and beyond, we're only going to see more, I think, attempts and vulnerabilities. Look, technology is going to play more and more of a role in transportation than it already does. You look at even just a car, and it is increasingly a piece of technology as much as it is a piece of machinery. We've got to make sure that those technologies are secure.
Mask mandates are being lifted. School children around the world are cheering. But I want to ask how that relates to transportation, planes, trains. Are we going to be wearing masks forever?
You know, I think all of us are looking forward to a time when we can leave the masks at home when we're packing for a trip. We're not there yet. There hasn't been any change to the guidance that's currently in effect. And you can imagine why. If you think about the guidance that thankfully has come out that's allowed us in a lot of different places, in Washington, for example, where the transmission is considered low, to move into kind of a new stage with regard to these masks. You got a plane, you might have 100 different people from 99 different counties, some of which are low, some of which are high, some of which are in between. And so the strategy is a little bit different. But I can tell you, I'm among those who will be really, really relieved and appreciative when we are able to put this in the rearview mirror. And I know that the TSA is looking, as they always do, looking at the CDC guidance, which I do think will continue to be updated and revised based on the conditions on the ground, based on what we've learned, and based on the success that this country has had in using tools like vaccines and the emerging therapies like the pill, the treatment that the president was talking about to protect Americans from this virus.
I know you don't have a hard date, but you said you're really looking forward to that day. Any idea when that might be? 6 weeks, 6 months?
You know, I can't predict it right now. I'll just say that when that date comes, I'll be as glad as anybody in the traveling public. Although, remember, what would happen when there's a change is likely similar to what's happening in communities around the country, which is that, of course, the recommendation shifts or the requirement shifts for it to be optional. Some people may be more comfortable for a very long time, choosing to continue to wear a mask. And, of course, that's fine. But the question about how long it's going to be required, that's going to continue to be based on the findings of the CDC.
Yeah, so let me know your thoughts here. The price of oil has gone up to $113 a barrel. I remember just a week or so ago talking about it could go up to $100 a barrel. Then I remember saying just a few days ago it went up to $105 a barrel. Now it's up to $113 a barrel. Yeah, so expect gas prices to continue to go up. I'm sure they're going up where you are, and even more so here in the next few days. And yeah, and gotta blame Russian President Putin on this. We knew that this was kind of happening. I kind of let you guys know about this week or two ago. Even just the hint of war in Russia sent gas prices going up, and now that it's actually happening, they're soaring. They're soaring, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. A lot of people are saying that we should not be buying Russian oil anymore. I do tend to agree with that, but if we do that, the price of gas will go up. So it's a tough pill to swallow there. But I really don't think that we should be buying gas from Russia, because that directly supports Putin. And that's pretty much all they have. All they have is basically oil and gas. So it's just, I mean, we're sending them billions of dollars for oil and gas. And if you cut them out of that, that's basically all their money supply. But we would need to coordinate that with the EU, because the United States can't just be just us. We would have to coordinate that with all of EU. all the European Union countries and NATO countries, because honestly, if all the countries stop buying oil from them, that's pretty much it for Russia. I mean, that's a severe sanction. I mean, that's it. I mean, that's a crippling thing for them. I don't even know how bad that would be for them, but that would be severe for them. I mean, that could send them into ruin. I mean, we're already seeing their financial system collapse. Their dollar has collapsed by about 40 to 50%, and their stock market has collapsed by about 40 to 50% as well. This could send them over the edge. So let me know your thoughts here. Would you be for not buying Russian oil, but be willing to pay? And we don't know how much gas would go up, but let's just say $1 more per gallon. Then we'll just pick a number out of there. Would you be willing to pay $1 more per gallon to not buy Russian oil? Now, again, we can try things like, um, not sending more of our oil overseas to wherever it's going. I'm sure it's going to dozens of different countries, right? We could try to drill more oil here, all sorts of different things here. But let's just say it's going to cost more. I think we all know it's going to cost more money here. Would you be willing to do that or no? And honestly, I expect yeses and nos in the comments. It's not an easy answer, because it's going to directly impact people's pocketbooks. There's no wrong answer here. And honestly, a lot of people won't be able to afford it. A lot of people will not be able to go and spend an extra $20 every time they fill up. That's significant. Every single time you fill up, an extra 20, an extra 20, an extra 20. That really adds up. I mean, that's significant. Um, you're talking about hundreds of dollars here are going to start going here. So it's kind of the principle of the matter is the principle worth it? You know, yeah. So I'll keep you up to date here with everything. Got some pretty big decisions here, and it's a tough decision for our president too, or even Congress. Even Congress could make the decision here, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens here. So I'll keep you up to date here on everything. Make sure to subscribe down below. I'll keep you in the loop here in our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to click the subscribe button down below. It's completely free to do so. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can click here to watch my newest video next. And you can click here to see how there could be monthly payments coming out here with stimulus money. So click on one of those videos. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.